Anyway, how you been, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
How's Pancho?
He's good. I think I said in the email he had an infection on the incision, and thankfully though antibiotics knocked it out.
Okay.
Like a week later, he seemed fine.
You haven't seen a drastic change since the operation, have you?
No, I don't know if I've seen a change at all, really. I mean,
Okay.
maybe a little bit,
I know the weather's been it's been crazy recently, which has affected a lot of people in their training and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys still able to go on the walks and everything?
And he hasn't had a walk since like the big snow started. It was just so, but definitely gonna start taking him on him again.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's Chicago, right? So the weather might change again.
Yeah.
But what I would do is, because you want to do the people coming in exercise, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, did I send you the videos or the video on people coming in?
I started watching it last night.
Okay, with the German Shepherd Mia?
No, it was with no, I don't remember the name of the dog.
What kind of dog was it?
I don't think you showed. I don't know what kind of dog.
Okay,
it was a white couple, and Enrique was coming in the door. He was all suited up.
Okay, was it like coming in like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that might have been Cashew.
Yeah, don't remember.
Maybe, because I've only done a few with Enrique, and I think only one is actually up, and I think it's Cashew, which is actually, it's a good video to watch, because Cashew, she's very nervous, reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a really good example. The only problem was my computer stopped recording the screen at some point. So then it was the Zoom recording, and Zoom only records who's talking. So if I was talking, but they were doing some stuff, you would see me, but not the
Right.
exercise. But the one with Mia, which I can send to you again if you don't have it, just send me a reminder.
Okay.
Is you definitely want to refer to that first to give you an idea of the exercise, because it's nothing to do with obedience. We don't do sit, we don't do stay, we don't do place or anything like that. It's you actively communicating with Pancho using body language to back him off the door, to de-escalate and calm him down. And we see how does that affect his behavior. Okay. So in the video with Enrique, he was the guest, the visiting guest, and I think he walked in with like a big old suit on, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you're concerned about Pancho in that regard, you don't have to worry about that, okay? Because he'd show up with the suit. And what we did with Cashew is Enrique came in and they didn't do anything, and he just walked straight to Cashew. And I think she expressed her anal glands or whatever, because she was put under too much pressure. And she's not an aggressive dog. She just gets really nervous, but she looks aggressive, right? Because she's like barking. So if you wanted to test what Pancho is about, Enrique can go on with the suit. You would have Pancho on a leash. He would ring the doorbell. Pancho would go nuts, and Enrique would just walk in. Okay. And you might see Pancho like try to like nip at him, or you might see him like bite and like, try to shake him.
He would probably try to do that based on experience, honestly. Like, yeah.
Sure. So this just shows you what the intention is, okay? Because a lot of times I come in, like for instance with that couple, like it looks really aggressive, but she did nothing. I think she like did a little tiny nip at his sleeve, and that was it. Because she really is not aggressive. She's more scared than anything, right? Okay. So, and we can feel the bite through the suit. We don't hurt, but we can gauge the intensity. So Enrique could come in and you might see Pancho bite and he'll be like, it was like a 2 out of 10, right? So there's not a lot of intention there. obviously, because we're humans and we don't have fur to protect our skin, if a tooth can still do damage, but it helps people understand, like, okay, like this is what I'm dealing with. I saw it firsthand. Now what do we do? Okay.
Mhm.
Now there'd be a couple approaches. One would be, for wanting to teach Pancho that biting people entering the home is not an option. We have to first have Enrique come in, let Pancho actively bite him in the suit, and then you would correct them with the e-collar.
Okay.
Okay. And then every time he tries to bite Enrique, you're just correcting him with the e-collar, and he should learn to back off. And what we would do is we would build it to where Enrique would start petting Pancho, and he doesn't do anything. Okay, so when we deal with, and I don't think Pancho is aggressive dog still. Okay, and I'll explain all that stuff. Is if I'm dealing with a fear aggressive dog, that is a dog that is aggressive because it is scared. Okay, it's not aggressive for the sake of being aggressive. Okay, that's super, super rare. So the worst thing for that dog is to be touched by a human that it does not know. Okay, so we
Yeah,
put
that
on
was
the
one of
suit.
the things. Yeah.
Yep, we put on the suit. We come inside. We have the dog on the leash. I step on the leash. Dog cannot run away. I go to touch them. They start attacking me. I correct them with the e-collar. They stop attacking me, and I keep touching them.
Mhm.
Nothing happens. So the dog starts to learn, oh, I thought you were going to hurt me. When you touched me, I attacked you. Something happened I didn't like. When I stopped attacking you, that something went away. And you're touching me now, and nothing bad is happening. Okay. That's how we start to counter condition dogs, is they have to be allowed to let it out, be corrected for it, but then repeatedly be exposed to it and go, oh, being touched by someone I don't know is not a bad thing. I don't need to be scared. Right?
Quiet.
But you have to put them through it in order for them to get over it. Okay. So for Pancho, if Enrique comes in, and he starts to like act up or like, and first we would test it, see what he's about. Then we come back in and then we go, okay, now we're going to start working on it. Okay. We wouldn't work on it right off the bat because we want to get a very clear reading on Pancho.
Mhm.
Go back out. Okay. You go to 55 or whatever. Enrique re-enters. We see Pancho charge him, jump up, and then we start correcting him to back him off. Right. Then Enrique goes over, steps on his leash to contain him. He starts to pet him. Pancho does nothing. Then Enrique starts to like jump around and like move quickly and walk past Pancho and all that stuff. Does he do anything? If we see Pancho like start to stare at him, we correct him, right?
Okay.
And we're teaching him that none of these things are any reason for him to feel uncomfortable. Okay. Now, where he's coming from is territorial behavior, right? I think all it was like 1 or 2 bites, and it was people coming into the home. Was that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
most of the aggression has been people coming in the home. One was her mom trying to get him inside, and he wouldn't go.
Mhm.
One was my friend, and I stupidly let her like reach over his own fence to pet him.
Mhm.
So the bites are a little bit of a mixed bag, but like 90% of the aggression is people coming in the front door.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
him behind the fence and the person reaching over, I would expect to get bit.
Yeah, you told me to never do that again.
Yeah. And because like this happened to someone, they live in Elmwood Park,
Mhm.
and their dog was behind a fence, and the house next door was like for sale, and the realtor like saw the dog and was like, oh, and like went over and reached, dog fucking bit the realtor's hand, right? And then they told me, and I was like, yeah, like that's what dogs do. Like people, they see, it's just it's the thought process of all dogs love everyone and everything.
Yeah. Right.
No, that's their territory, and then you reach them, you're going to get bit. I had another client, their dog and their neighbor's dog would play all the time,
Mhm.
right? No problems, always played, right? Then one day, the neighbor's dog got into their yard and they didn't know it. And they let their dog out to go potty. And their dog ran out the front door and ended up attacking the neighbor's dog. Okay. And they were baffled because they're like, but they play with each other all the time. I'm like, well, imagine if you wake up in the middle of the night and your neighbor's in the middle of your living room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, are you not going to go into like defense mode?
Right? I'd go the jugular right away. Yeah.
So that's the same thing. Does that make sense?
It does.
So how do you, well, you bring up a good point, because he goes crazy with the neighbor.
One of the neighbors, yeah.
One of the neighbors, and I think it's territorial.
Mhm.
But that's another incident where I'm scared that he might accidentally bite him if.
Well, he's never exposed to him. So we have two neighbors, obviously, and one of them, he's like 99% of the time when they're outside walking back and forth, work, doing whatever, he doesn't give a crap. But the man that lives on the other side of the fence, I don't know. I've been correcting him just in my own way, and he's not doing it much anymore.
I corrected him up, and it was 80, and he still was barking crazy.
Yeah, he'll go crazy when that neighbor goes by, and the guy will be like, "Hi, Pancho, hi, Pancho," and just like,
oh, well, that's part of it.
Oh, that doesn't help.
Talking to him, right?
Sorry.
Now he's talking to him.
Right.
Right. So Pancho, so like I understand your neighbor's trying to be friends, but Pancho in that moment is heightened because of territorial behavior, and now the guy's talking to him. And Pancho doesn't know what he's saying, by the way.
Right.
Like Pancho could assume he's talking shit for all he knows. Right. So that makes sense to me. Is that if a dog is, it's like reactivity, right? Most of the time, reactivity towards humans goes away first, then it's walking past calm dogs, then it's walking past like excited energy. And then when it's another reactive dog and their dog becomes reactive, that's harder. And I go, yeah, because the other dog's lunging and barking and putting out threat. So your dog is going to go into like, well, you're going to talk shit to me, I'm going to talk shit back. Right. So that makes more sense of why you'd have to go higher, or why like that would have been difficult, or if sometimes you have a hard time dialing them down, because you always want to think what's different this time than the other 50 times that I've been successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You want to try to pull out that variable, and a lot of times it could be something as subtle as the person talking to them. Okay. So what I would do, if you don't want to tell your neighbor like, hey, do you mind like ignoring Pancho, because we're trying to curb this and we want to see if you ignore him, if that makes it easier. Okay?
Yeah, I do want to say, I don't think he talks most of the time.
Not too much now, but
once in a while he'll say, hi, Pancho.
What about your other neighbors? Did they ever talk to him?
No.
But he's not as aggressive with them.
He's fine with them, but like in the spring and summer, they have people mow their lawn and crap, and he's gone nuts on those. Like gotten off all fours, jumping like to the fence. Like it's like a 6-foot high wooden fence you can't even see. But he leaves the people who live there alone. He doesn't have a problem with them for whatever reason. But like the dude's mowing the lawn. Like I saw him literally jump off all fours once. Like he's trying to hop the freaking fence or something.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not like, because he doesn't know what a lawnmower is, right? So it could be the motor. It can just be that person. If it's the lawn guy that comes once a month, right? Like, because you're logical. You got to remember, you're logical. You're like, that's just a lawnmower man, dude. Right? But to Pancho, it's some guy that comes randomly once a month with this machine that makes a lot of noise that he doesn't like. Right? So that's where I give that window, because I'm like, I get it. Like my pit Lexi doesn't like motorcycles. When she sees a motorcycle or hears one, she'll like start to perk up, but she doesn't go crazy. She did in the beginning, and then I corrected her for it. Now she just perks up, but she doesn't explode.
Right.
Okay. So, but right there, when you said, well, he ignores the neighbors, but this neighbor, he goes crazy for. And then you said your neighbor talked to him, but you're like, but he doesn't always talk to him. So then I said, well, do your other neighbors talk to him? And you're like, no, they don't.
Yeah, I would say never.
See the difference?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if let's say your neighbor didn't speak English, And every time you saw your neighbor, they were looking at you and they were saying something in a different language. And you're like, what the fuck are you saying? Right? And they didn't do it every time, but they did every other time. Like,
That
would
is
you not be like, the fuck are you saying? Are you talking?
Yeah.
Are you talking about me? Right?
right.
Same thing for your dog. So that's why he's like, why are you talking to me? Like, I don't know you. Right. So then Pancho is going to go on the defensive more regularly
Mhm.
as being a step ahead.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
how
So
how could we introduce him to Pancho, Pancho to him? I mean, how, huh?
don't worry about that. Okay.
That's
Because unless your neighbor is going to be your best friend and come over every day, it doesn't matter.
No.
just hi, how you doing?
Only matters for the people that will come inside, for sure. That's realistic. Okay.
Okay.
Because Eve, so let's say, and so remember the story I just said, right? I said the neighbor's dog and their dog played all the time. And then one day their dog got into, their neighbor's dog got into the yard, and when they just happened to let their dog out to go potty, and then immediately attacked. And they had played Lord knows how many times. Right. And the first time the dog goes out and like, hey, what the fuck are you doing in my yard? Attack. Right. Is Pancho could be best friends with your neighbor outside the fence. And the moment your neighbor comes in the fence, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
Or the moment your neighbor comes in the fence when you're not around. So another story for you, when I was in Miami, the neighbor had met the guy's dog. Dog was social. You know, you could come into the yard. If the owner was there and you came into the yard, dog was great, no problem, all that stuff, right? Met the neighbor, all that stuff, no problem. Never any issues, never any aggression issues, none of that stuff. Then one day, the dog's in the yard just hanging out because the owner put him out there. The neighbor going, oh, we know each other. I'm going to cut through your yard to get to a different yard, which to me sounded kind of sus. But anyways,
Yeah.
he jumped into the guy's yard. The guy's dog bit him in the ass. Okay. And they were like, why? They met and stuff. I'm like, well, dude, I'm like, he did his job. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it sucks because it was your neighbor. But
Right.
had it been someone who was ill-intentioned, we would be having a different conversation.
Well, true.
Yeah.
Right. So, and again, he had met the neighbor, never had been over, all that stuff. When the owner was around,
hmm
and when the owner was around, then the bite happened. They go, yeah, he was protecting the property. I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, the guy got sued. He got sued for $100 grand, lost his house insurance, and also lost $100 grand. Yeah, because human laws don't make sense. Like like so. For instance, the person that reached their hand over into the yard and stuff earlier, they
Right.
didn't sue, but they pressed charges or whatever with the animal control and all that crap. But I'm like, to me, I'm like, it does not make sense. But the way the laws are written, unfortunately, favor the other person.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Wow,
Someone
really?
jumping your fence. I mean, huh.
Yeah, So human logic and the human laws don't really apply to like dog logic and all that stuff. Okay. So the reason why I tell you these stories is like, because I want you to understand Pancho as a dog. Okay. Remember, not all dogs love everyone and everything. Some dogs are more heightened in territorial behavior. Some dogs have zero territorial behavior, and you could reach over and they'll wiggle for you, and they'll give you a ball to play with them and throw it across the yard and stuff, right?
Right.
So we know Pancho is more territorial. I'm not worried about the neighbor and him being best friends. Now, if you go, hey, if we're outside, so my dogs, for example, when I was in Texas and I had a yard, if I was in the yard with my dogs and you walk by, nobody would bark at you. Okay. If I was inside the house and my dogs were outside, they would all bark at you. If you're walking out in front of my yard and they were barking and I walked out, they would shut up. Do you see that conversation?
Mhm.
Right. So they're like, when dad's here, we don't need to bark because he's the one in control. When dad
Yeah.
is gone, it is now on our responsibility to like warn others, hey, there's dogs here, and to let know, hey, we're on top of it because it can hear us.
Yeah.
But
I
then
wish
if
we
dad
had-
comes out while we're barking, he must have got the message, we don't need to bark anymore. Okay. It's really like, that's literally how they are. Okay, because my dogs, because I would discipline them and correct them all that stuff, and I had very strict rules. They knew like if I was there, I was in control. No need to act out. Okay, so if you're in the yard with Pancho, and you're like, I don't want this dog barking when I'm out here, makes sense, because you're out there, you're present, you're aware of what's going on. If you're inside the yard and he's barking, and you were to be correcting him, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I'm like, but he's doing his job because he's unattended. So he's like, hey, no one's in the yard, everybody's inside. Well, I'm gonna go on security detail. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Would you suggest then, like, I mean, yeah, and in fact, my next question, it kind of leads into that, like, just so I understand, like, how often I should be correcting stuff like this. Like, let's just say that every day, every time he goes outside, he goes nuts with the neighbor walking by on the opposite side of the fence. Like, he runs back and forth and barks. Sometimes it's just running back and forth. Like, how often should I be tapping both those behaviors, whether it's running back and forth, not barking, or both?
Both. Yeah, because
Like,
one
every
leads to
time?
the other.
But like every time?
Yeah, because so once you make your rule, it has to be consistent, right? So if there's a red light with a camera that gives you a ticket every time you run that red light, it's not gonna not sometimes go off. If you run that red light, it's going off, right? It's the same thing for Pancho. And what I would do, so when you correct them outside for the barking stuff, what's your number?
Mine's like 60. I try not to move it too high.
Yeah, usually don't need it that high anymore. He has got better about it, being outside and going crazy. I mean,
Do you still have to correct them from time to time?
yeah. The thing, I mean, I've probably been a little lax on the just running and not making a noise. I mean, I guess I like incorrectly was thinking like, I let him get his damn aggression out. If he's not barking, it's better.
Oh no.
But yeah.
I mean, because a little aggression is still aggression.
Yeah, and you
right?
we
A
want
little attitude is still attitude. Okay, so if 60 has been getting it done, then you can keep it at 60. But now, any little thing of interest or suspicion or huffing or puffing or whining or staring, you correct it.
Okay.
Okay.
And is it accompanied with saying anything or just?
I personally don't, because I want him to assume that when I'm present, that stuff is just not going to happen. Because
Okay.
if you say Pancho no, he can technically do it until you say no.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Remember, you want him to learn as an like automatically. If I'm outside with dad and I do any of this nonsense, there is a correction with no warning.
Okay.
Now, me personally, when I deal with stuff like that, I just max out the collar. And right off the bat, boom, pop, 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 right? Because I want to get it done real fast.
Yeah.
Right.
I accidentally shocked myself the other day, Jesse. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I've remoted myself in 127 with the big boy collar.
Oh my God, this was at 80.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sucks, right?
Yeah.
But, dogs bite each other.
No, right. And
you know, so like even though it, like e-collar is effective because it can get as close to the discomfort of a dog bite as possible without actually like puncturing or causing your dog to bleed or whatever, right? And because I have like 5 scars in my body from dog bites, as well as like other times the dogs have tried to bite me and they just didn't, I was able to stop them or whatever, right? That's why I don't have a problem with it. Because I want to get the point across. I'm like, I'm not gonna prolong this process because I just know I don't want him to bark. Because he doesn't see it as you being mean or anything. He's just like, oh shit, I tried to bark at the neighbor, that didn't go well, right? And the next time he sees it, and like, let's say you 127 him tomorrow, a few times, and every time you go out in the yard, you're gonna notice like, holy shit, ever since we did 127 that one day, like 5 times. He hasn't barked in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right? When you're present with him.
Yeah.
If you go in the house, he's gonna bark. Okay.
Sure.
And that's something, in my opinion, and this is your house or rules. I don't deter because that is security. Right.
Yeah.
But you can also, if you're like, no, we don't want him to bark, period, you could 127 him for that as well. But just understand that, you lose something there.
Okay. Yeah.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Other questions?
I mean, I'm guessing, would it be like same rules apply for going nuts when both of us are inside? Like, delivery guys, he'll go nuts. A dog walking by the front of the house, he'll go nuts, etc.
Did I ever send you the bonker videos?
Uh,
With the
I
towel?
don't recall. I don't recall. Maybe.
Okay. So when he's inside the house, because the only time I care about putting remote on for Pancho is when people are going to come into the house, because you need the most control there.
Mhm.
If it's just Amazon running up to like drop a package, right? And you're like, this is nonsense, and you want to make your decision, and you want to think, I don't ever want you to bark at Amazon. Okay. So the bonker is just a rolled up towel. Okay. And I suggest you make a few of them, use hair bands or rubber bands to keep its shape. So it's firm but soft. Okay. And the moment you see him perk up, like let's say he's on the couch, right? And you're sitting there too, and he perks up like, who's stepping on the front steps? Boom. You would correct him right there. Don't wait till he's already going bonkers. Okay. If you can catch it early, catch it early. Otherwise, if he's going bonkers, you correct him at the full blown behavior. Okay. Now, because if you were another dog, okay, let's say there was another dog in the house, and every time Pancho barked at the door, and that dog was like, you know what, I don't like this behavior, I'm gonna cut that out. They would just bite him. They don't sit him down and say, hey, Pancho, that's just Amazon. We ordered some, Brita filters or whatever. They're just dropping off the Brita filters. He's not going to understand that, right? He's going to understand, hey, when I go nuts for the Amazon guy, for the UPS guy, for the USPS guy, blah, 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 I get corrected firmly, okay? Because we know there's nothing, or we can assume that there's nothing there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you can pick and choose what he barks at. Like, let's say, you only correct for like the delivery guys, and you only correct when you see like kids running in front of the house. But when you see like adults, you're like, no, we want him to bark at like people just in case, right? But
Yeah.
you don't want him barking at kids or dogs or delivery guys. You would just correct all that stuff, and he'll start to differentiate. When I bark at adults or tall people, nothing happens. But if I bark at the Amazon guy, the UPS guy, FedEx guy, kids, dogs, I get corrected. Okay, so dogs are able to do this. You just have to be consistent of when you correct him.
Okay. This might be a dumb question, but I mean, he knows there's a big difference between like barking at the dude walking outside and like lunging at and attacking someone that comes in, right? I mean,
What do you mean?
I forgot where I was going with that.
Oh, like let's say if somebody came in threatening, you mean? Like would he still become defensive?
I think what I was going for is if you allow some of that, like just like aggression inside barking at someone, that's not going to confuse him and make him think like what am I trying to say?
Oh no. I know.
He those as two separate things.
Yeah. So that's why I said the only time you'd use the e-collar for correcting the barking stuff in the home is if somebody were to actively come in. Okay. Because him barking at someone in front of the house, and that's not aggression, by the way. Okay. That I wouldn't call that aggressive.
Okay.
He's just saying, I see you. I'm letting you know I see you, right? I'm here. So don't try anything. That's the conversation. Okay. So he's not being aggressive. He's just communicating. Okay. If someone came into your home and he bit them, yes, that's aggression, but it's territorial aggression. Okay. A human can decide as they're walking past someone, I'm going to punch you. Boom. For no damn reason. Okay. That's aggression. You just do it for the sake of doing it for no fucking reason. Right. But if someone came into my home uninvited and I come out of my bedroom, and I'm like, there's the stranger there, and I'm like, I don't know you, so I'm gonna go on the offensive and tackle and knock him out. I wasn't being aggressive.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
protecting my home. Right.
Okay.
You gotta see it that way, because people are used to, like, oh, when I walk into my friend's house, the dog barks, but then they start wagging their tail when they see me. Right. But that's their dog. Right. So here, yes, he can tell the difference, but because there's going to be more conversation involved. So when we don't want him to bark at, Amazon, whatever, we just correct it, because Amazon's not going to come inside. Right. And you're just teaching him, like, dude, there's nothing to worry about. But when Enrique comes over, because Enrique is going to come inside, that's where that video comes into play that I was talking about with Mia. Because now there's conversation, and the conversation is, Pancho, this is my guest. This is my door. Thanks for letting me know someone's here. But you need to cut the crap, chill out, and go over there. Okay. And when my guest comes in, you better not try anything. Okay. So when the knock happens and he becomes territorial, Pancho literally cannot help that.
Yeah.
He literally knock, bark, 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 bark. Right? He's not sitting there pondering or like planning and plotting, right, and scheming. Ooh, like, I'm gonna bark and bite this person coming. He's not doing any of that.
All instincts. Right?
Yes, it's all instinct. He is reacting to a stimuli. Okay. So when we do this exercise, you're taking the time to shut down that territorial behavior, because territorial behavior is suspicion. If he's suspicious, we're not likely to see curiosity. Okay. Curiosity is social behavior. Curiosity is, who are you? Right. So suspicion is, who are you? Right. There's a different energy there. So if we don't shut down territorial behavior, he stays stuck in suspicion. He's going to be he's not going to take to the person. Okay. When we shut it down and the guest comes in and he's like, all right, well, dad told me I didn't need to be suspicious. Right. And then they just hang out for a bit. And eventually he's like, nothing's going on. And he goes over and he walks, he starts to sniff him. All right, you're cool. And then walks off and lays down.
Okay.
Right. And then the person doesn't need to interact with Pancho, and vice versa. That's the other thing people think. Oh, come in my house, you have to greet my dog, or I have to greet your dog. No, when I go to people's houses, I ignore the dogs. I never do. I never greet anybody's dog, right? Even like my client's dog and all that stuff. When they come in, like, I'm usually just like, whatever.
I've noticed that now that you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought
Right.
you didn't like Pancho.
No, but that's why dogs like me, because I don't put any pressure on them. It's like, it's like a man telling women to smile, right? Like, why the fuck do I have to smile? Right?
There's a lot of things. I don't think I've ever said that.
Yeah. Like, and it's that same kind of mentality. Oh, you got a dog, I got to pet him. Your dog's got to let me pet him.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do shit. It's my dog. You want a pet dog? Go get your own. Right? So, but that's the problem with the world.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, with Pancho in those moments, right? The fence thing. Does you see how that makes sense?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And fences create. Have you seen that video? It's like kind of viral now, where there's the fence, like a sliding fence, and the dogs are going crazy. And when the fence opens, they stop, and then when it closes, they go crazy. And when it opens, it stops. Have
Interesting.
you seen that?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So fences create frustration. They create separation, and if it's on TikTok, which one of my employees got me doing now for the business.
Yeah.
But I saw it and I'm like, yep, like, that's perfect, because dogs are on or off. So when the fence is closed, they're hyper territorial, they're snapping at each other to the fence. It opens up, they just stop. And it closes again, they go crazy, and it opens up and they stop. Okay, that's dog. They're on or they're off. Okay. So, and the other one with, I think your mom coming in, I can't remember, did she just walk in
No, she was playing with the dog in the backyard, and she's like,
I think he's
okay.
talking about my mom.
Oh, your mom. Well,
Yeah, my mom. It was like a chaotic scene, and it was the
Yeah.
first. It was the first incident, and I, incorrectly at the time thought it was. I chalked it up specifically to the circumstances. Like, I was in the shower. My mom was like outside the door, like yelling. Not like screaming, but like saying that she was there.
I was yelling.
And then Marisol screaming like, "Your mom's here, Scott, Scott!" I'm like, "All right, I'm in the shower, like freaking let her in." And so yeah, she let my mom in after all the screaming and stuff, and my mom went right to like pet him,
Oh, yeah.
like,
Yeah. Right. Because it's that whole, one, there was the energy, the chaos prior. Right.
Not
Was he
yet.
barking too at that time?
yeah. But like I thought like it was all those circumstances, like you said, yelling like a fool, and my mom was yelling from outside the door. He's like, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
But then the other incidents, I mean, yeah, it was her mom trying to get him inside.
Was there
our niece Miranda, who used to be the one that stayed with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the weirdest one. And like she did nothing. Like,
no, but I think he was all hyper, and usually I let him outside as soon as I get in. And this time I'm like, no, you have to wait. I'm talking to Miranda. And then Miranda reached to say, "Hey, Pancho," that he just bit her. And I think that was more like, who are you to tell me that I have to wait? That's how I interpret that.
No, he doesn't think that way. Okay. But 3 of those bites are all the same. They're all, from what I'm understanding, the fence one, your mom, your niece, was they had just come in and then they went for him. Does that make sense? Is that correct?
2 of them, yeah. Your mom had been here though, right?
Yeah, my mom been here. She was playing with them in the backyard. She's like, "Okay, time to come in. Give me the toy." And he's like, I was thinking, well, he's like, "No, I'm not done playing. You can't tell me to come in."
I remember this one, yeah. With the ball or something, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened next?
So then my mom's like, "Give me the toy." That's how he reached and bit her. He like started barking at her face, like lunged at her.
Sure, yeah. So that's more so resource guarding. Okay, because she was going for the object and then she put her face in his face. Right? So then it's right there. So I mean, like it's like with people, right? If someone were to put their face in front of your face like this, how would you feel?
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah. It's confrontational.
Yeah.
Okay. And like you guys could do it probably with Pancho, right? Because you're his family. Right? He knows you, he trusts you, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you know, doesn't mean he wouldn't. Okay? Because that's an assumption like people I hear all the time, my dog would never bite me. And I go, until the day they do, because I had this happen with the lady German Shepherd. It was one of my first clients' like sister. And coincidentally, so she had a friend over, the dog was sleeping on the couch. And she was ironically bragging to her friend, saying, "I can do whatever I want to this dog. I've had this dog since he was a puppy, blah, blah, blah," right? And she goes, and he's sleeping, and puts her face on his face like this. Dog wakes up, bites her.
Oh, yeah, no.
And my client at the time, because she was an older lady, she was like 70 years old. So she was like old school thinking. She's like, "Oh my God, the dog was aggressive, blah, blah, blah." Like, and then she was like, "Well, can you make any sense of it, Jesse?" I'm like, "Absolutely."
Even I can cover that one, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, and then she's like, "But she had the dog for years." I'm like, "Yeah." And then she was probably pulling some stupid shit like this for like 5 years, and the dog goes, "Fuck, not today."
Yeah.
Right to the face. It's like when people go postal.
Yeah.
Right? You deal with shit, you deal with shit, you deal with shit, you deal with shit, and then finally, like, explosion. Right? It's the same concept. So 3 of those 4 incidents are essentially the same. Someone had just come into the home, right? And he was agitated, he was amped up or whatever. One was behind the fence, right? The one was he was waiting there for a bit, but then she was, "Hey, Pancho," and also that energy.
Yeah.
"Hey, Pancho."
Yeah.
Right? I've had in the past month a few people tell me my dog snapped at someone, right? And they're like, and they've never done it before. And I'm like, did they happen to use a high pitched voice? And they said yes. I'm like, did they happen to be leaning into the dog? They said yes. I'm like, that's why it happened.
Huh.
I
Right.
guess I don't know about that. Yeah.
So when people tell me stuff and to them it seems seemingly out the blue, I can almost always figure out why, because I know what dogs don't like.
Yeah.
You know, because to the people, we're thinking, if we talk nice and cute like this, the dog is going to like me. Oh, no, or not. Leave the dog alone. When you ignore dogs, that's when they like you, because you're not forcing them to do anything. They approach when they're ready. You know, so like if Pancho, if I were to come over repeatedly and I ignore him, we would have no issues with each other. And then one day Pancho would come up and I'd be with my hand or whatever, and he'd come over with his nose and go like this. And he's going, hey, now I'm ready.
Yeah.
He's initiating the contact. And you've probably had this, right? Where you just sitting there and he comes up to you and he like knows.
Yeah, it's funny when he does that.
Yeah. So he's initiating physicality, right? He's going, hey, I'm touching my nose, telling you now I'm ready for affection from you. Right. And what people do is when the dog starts to sniff them, they then start to reach for the dog. And then the dog jumps back and starts barking. Because the dog was just trying to figure out who the person was and get acquainted. And the person goes, oh, you must want me to touch you. No, the dog will initiate touch when they're ready for touch. Okay. So there's certain things that I put on our terms, like, hey, cut the crap, don't bark at the door, settle down. But then your guest would just ignore Pancho. Right. And then maybe 20 times after that guest has been over 20 times, you might see Pancho walk over and like sit down on the couch with them and like start licking their face. Right. But that doesn't mean they can go like, oh my God, Pancho, I love you so much.
Sure.
Right. Because now they're overdoing it. All right. So it's all those things. So what I would do is, of course, you know, I would send Enrique. He would do all this stuff. Okay. I would be there on the Zoom, because he's learning how to do all this stuff. He's already done this a number of times, so he's already familiar with the exercise. And I'll be here coaching, okay? We see where he's at. We test a few things. We show you the exercise. We practice the exercise, okay? And then this is where muzzle is going to come into play, okay? Because if you're going to do this with guests or whatever, you have to rebuild trust with Pancho from you to him.
Yep.
You have to build trust from Pancho to guest and guest to Pancho. Right? Because if you're like, hey, come over, our dog's muzzled because we've had a couple incidents, right?
Oh, be right there.
Yeah, exactly. So the muzzle helps everybody feel relaxed. Everybody, you don't have to worry about that stuff, right? Just takes off that edge. And you can use that for as long as you need to, okay? Some people can go months using the muzzle every time someone comes over before they go like, hey, like we've had no tension. Dog's been great. Dog's opening up to people. The dog's looking for affection. The dog's seeking affection, blah, 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 blah. And they go, great. When you're ready, you can remove it, right? But don't let your guests be stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Because we cannot make Pancho a golden retriever, right?
He'll never be. Yeah.
Yeah. He's Pancho, right? But he's not a bad dog. He has boundaries. But the way dogs reinforce boundaries is through biting, right? As a human, you can say, hey, you're getting my space, back off, or hey, don't try to touch me, right? And we don't bite each other unless you're Mike Tyson. We settle things through pushing, kicking, and punching, right? So that's why we're not as deadly or as harmful as an animal, because animals do things with their teeth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that, you know, all the stuff that you guys have told me, I get it. Not the first time, not going to be the last time. I just want you to understand your dog. Okay.
Yes.
Now, let's say we do this exercise and stuff, and he's just really tense and he's not opening up or whatever, right? We won't know until we actually do the exercise and repeat and all that stuff. There's always an answer. Okay. It's just, what answer are you willing to accept? So what I mean by that is, let's say for whatever reason, Pancho is just a jackass when people come over. Okay. Well, then I go, well, you could just kennel him, right? And when your guest is there, he's just in the kennel. And if he barks, you just 127 him to shut him the hell up.
Yeah.
Right. But then people go like, well, I don't want my dog to be in the kennel when guests come over. And I'm like, well, then that's your own fucking problem, because the dog doesn't care. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what I swear, people, like, I've had dogs, you know, who like in your case also have bitten people, right? And the owner feels so bad about remoting the dog. And I go, but this dog just put 10 stitches into your uncle or your brother or whatever, and they feel bad about remoting their dog. Does that make sense? Like they're it's just the emotional, mental, whatever hump that people have with their dogs. And I go, I have a client right now. His dog went after a couple of dogs, and I'm like, muzzle train this dog because he wants to socialize. I'm like, you're a muzzle train, and like you can tell he doesn't like it. You can tell he doesn't want to do it. He's very adverse to it, and he's very much like, when is this going to go away? I'm like, dude, your fucking dog attacked a few dogs, and you're having a problem with this tool that's meant to keep other people's dogs safe and also keep your dog safe, because it prevents your dog from actively landing another bite, which could ultimately end with your dog being put down.
Yeah.
But still having that mental, just like, I don't like this thing. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So there's always an answer. It's just, what are you willing to accept as an answer? Okay. Now, my goal here is to get you guys to a point where you can have people come over. Pancho can be out. He socializes. He warms up to your friends, your relatives. Those people matter. Those people would come over repeatedly. That makes sense. I don't care about your neighbors. I don't care about random people, whatever, all that stuff. I get that, right? But people you would see would see over and over again, that's more realistic of him opening up to them. And I think he can. I just think he was getting too overstimulated. He was getting too heightened with territorial behavior. And then they added some of this in, and it just turned into a shit show.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, if this means anything to you or whatever. So I mean, what, there's 5 people, 6 people that are here somewhat regularly that he's cool with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Her sister and 5 of our nephews. Like,
Okay.
and he's known them since the beginning, since before he snapped and all that. It's mostly dudes, as you see, but there is her sister. I don't know, but like, that's it. Like, I'm fairly confident if anyone else to come here, he'd be going ballistic.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know,
Just,
so like before he like kind of came into his own, if you will.
yeah, it's like he was awake, something awakened in them.
He was awakened, yeah. So this is super common. Like if I get a dog that was attacked, like let's say at 6 months, okay, as a puppy at 6 months, they were attacked by dogs. All puppies, or I mean, sorry, all other dogs or puppies that they met before they were attacked are good. Every other dog after that, bad.
Interesting.
Right? Because it's a very pivotal moment. And I've had dogs that like, and this is super common. It's usually around the 6 month mark, where owners will say like, Jesse, anybody or any dog that my dog has met before they were 6 months is great, no problem. Anybody or any dog after 6 months, problem. I go, yep. It's just some kind of switch, right? So it doesn't mean that he can't be. Okay?
Yeah.
Because
Mine, kind of.
when you start to add in communication, and then what I would do before I would take a couple of weeks, because we also have to, we're crazy busy now. This is why we're talking at 7 o'clock at night.
That's good.
Is I want you during this time until we get Enrique out there, tighten up that fence stuff. Okay. I want you to be like, yeah, Jesse, man, no nonsense from this guy. Okay. I really want you to do the bonking crap with Amazon and stuff, because it's going to make the exercise much easier. Okay. And then also reviewing the videos, and I can send them to you. Cashew's a good one. Mia's the one I should have sent if I did not send it. So I can send those videos with the bonker videos if you just send me a reminder, please. And then I would take 2, maybe 3 weeks of just getting the stuff, being consistent, no gray area. Okay. We see what does that change, and then we bring in Enrique.
That'll give us a chance to get the WALKs going again too. Which
Go back to that's right. Re-implement the walking and stuff, because if he's gone a few weeks with no structure and stuff, I get it, the weather and everything. We want to bring that back in so we have all the pieces, okay, and then that kind of gives us a better idea of how he would respond to the situation. Okay. If it goes south, in my opinion, don't be discouraged. It's controlled context, we can repeat it. Okay.
You're just saying, like, if the walk is correct, we're kind of starting over. Like he's not as good as he was the last time we went out. Is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about like when Enrique comes over.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Okay. If that goes south, don't worry about it. Okay. We work on it. Blah 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 blah, and then we just repeat that.
Okay.
Until we get you to a point. In most cases, it's really just a 1, maybe 2 class issue. Okay. Then it's repeat with friends or family, whatever, utilizing that muzzle, and tell them, ignore my dog, leave him alone, don't touch him. Okay. He's muzzled. We're going to see what happens or whatever. And then if you notice, like, you get months and of people coming over and relatives coming over, you're like, man, just like, he's actually been really good. Like, he's calm, doesn't care. He goes up to them and sniffs them and lays at their feet and all that stuff. And we're not seeing any tension from him. And I go, good. If you feel you're ready, you can move past your muzzle. Okay. And there's no set answer. Some people like to use the muzzle for like the first 15 minutes. And then once everything's done, they'll remove it. The dog's fine. Yeah. Others will use the muzzle for like months, and then they just go cold turkey. And others like will do it for a couple of weeks, and they're just like, yeah, the dog's great, we don't need it. Like, you go by how you feel, right? Because there's no law or rule that says you have to do it a certain way. Yeah. You do what works for you. Okay. And if you get, and if it's like, hey, Jesse, we just feel better just having Pancho on the muzzle, then who cares? Yeah. I don't care. There's no judgment there. If that makes you feel the most confident, the most comfortable, and you're like, hey, he's already got a couple on his, on his belt there. We don't want to gamble anymore, but we don't we want him to like be able to socialize, then use it. Okay. Okay.
Boarding.
Oh, the boarding. Yeah, we're talking, I guess, to Maria about it, but what's the date we were supposed to be leaving? 15th. How important do you think like the coming in for daycare before and everything was? I mean, we were going to try to at least do that.
Oh yeah. So where it comes into play is that, like, if you just drop him off here cold turkey, is he gonna be super freaked out?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So bringing him in before helps build familiarity, and we're not so pressed on having to like force him to come settle in, right? Because we've done it a couple of times where people just, and these are dogs that I've trained to, that just drop off their dogs cold turkey, and it's a pain in the ass. Okay. So it's easier if you drop him in and he's here for a few hours or whatever, and then you pick him up. And the days don't have to be sequential. I don't know what the dates are. I know I saw a couple of the emails. Yeah. But they don't have to, like, if you did like a Thursday and then like a few days go by and you did like a Thursday of a different week, like, it doesn't have to be day after day after day. It's just to get him in here for a few hours. He gets to come here. He gets to go home. He's like, oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. As opposed to you drop him off and it's like, oh shit, I'm not leaving this place.
But Jesse, right? Who watches a dog? Is it Enrique and the girl that we saw there? Only because because what if he doesn't like the girl? I'm just scared.
I don't like the girl.
I love your sense of humor, Jesse.
So all my handlers are taught how to handle that stuff. Okay. So what you would do for us is when you bring Pancho, bring a muzzle. Yeah. Okay. And we've had dogs that growled at us and all that stuff, and we play it by ear when you drop them off. Okay. So if you show up and he's like lunging and barking or something, we would correct them, and you would just walk up. And generally, if you just walk up and hand the leash and they just grab the dog and walk, no problem.
Okay.
It's more so if they were to come into your space and grab Pancho, because again, coming into your space,
Yeah.
his space, right? So, and then we have like tools here, like if like let's say he's in the kennel and he manages to get like the muzzle off or something like that. Like we had a dog that happened to, and Enrique had the suit up, and then they noosed the dog with the slip leash, and then he had another leash on the dog, and then he was able to loop the muzzle back on and all that stuff. So, you know, they've done it plenty of times that if something happens, we have a means of
Yeah, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a good way. Like I'm not worried about that. Our experience with you and everything, like
Yeah, no.
I'm sure I'm not worried about it. Yeah.
And Bree, it's funny that you picked Bree because Bree's usually the one that has trouble with dogs.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll growl and bark at her and all that stuff for whatever. I think it's because she's a softer energy, and dogs will pick up on that. But she knows how to make it happen. And then, you know, worst case scenario, if like, and I just hired 2 new staff members who are getting, and they don't touch the dogs. Like if Pancho came, we would tell him, you don't touch this dog, right? Until we get comfortable with them, the experienced people, and then we go, okay, cool. Now you can touch him, but he's going to be muzzled with you.
Like they're getting the lowdown from you, so to speak. Like this is what this dog's about.
Yeah.
That
So
was the only-
yeah, we don't just let them come in and handle dogs because that's just a shit show waiting to happen. But yeah, no, I'm not anticipating any issues here. But definitely for Pancho's, how do you say? It would help ease them in better if you can manage to bring them in. Okay.
Okay. We'll try to do it like at least twice. Then it's just
That's fine. It's better than 0.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Is the daycare 7 days a week, 5 days a week?
Yeah, 7 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah. So bring them in on the weekend. The weekend is typically slower, but it doesn't matter for Pancho because it's just going to be acclimating him to the facility.
Yeah.
And it's literally just like because we're all out. You saw the space. It's one big open space, right? So he's just able to be there and observe and stuff. And they'll do stuff like they'll do place work with him, and he'll do treadmill and everything. And they'll walk him in potty and everything. We're just getting him used to like, hey, this is the structure of everything. And also him just like seeing like the new guys walking around and going like, all right, the new guys ain't so bad. Like I saw them all day, right?
Yeah.
And then seeing how he does with us and everything. And typically dogs are better when they're away from their owners. Because you give Pancho something to protect.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I had a dog here that she was a little thing. She was like 30 pounds and she bit me through my bite suit.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah. Her little mouth got through the leggings and then she pinched me. And she will come here for boarding. Never seen a thing from her. Never.
Right.
Yeah. Like we still take precautions, but
Right.
no one has ever had any issue with her. But as soon as she's with her owners, watch out.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think
I
you.
guess not.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
So homework, 2 to 3 weeks. Correct all the barking inside the home with the bonker stuff. Re-implement the leash walking. Correct them when you're in the yard with him for any barking you don't want. My thing is just go up and just cut that crap right away. And like, you know, dogs are much better with a firm hand than if you're trying to be more so nice about it. Okay. Because we've already it's been months since he started his training. He's had the remote and all that stuff, right? And only with the behavior stuff. I'm not telling you to 127 him for the heel, unless you
Right.
need to, right? If he's being that bad, then yes, I do it. But if he's great at 80 or 45 or whatever, then that's the number you use for that because that's obedience. It's not behavior.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything else?
No.
I don't think so.
All right, guys. Well, it's good to see you again.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too, man.
Yeah. If you need anything else, you let me know. And then if you don't mind sending me a reminder, because I got a couple more things before.
The videos.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We'll do.
Awesome. All
Awesome.
right, thank you, Jesse.
Fair now.
Have a good night,
Bye-bye.
man.
Bye.
Yeah.